As Overwatch has made its initial strides into trying to become one of the premier esports games, there have been many criticisms leveled against it, and particularly in terms of its spectating value, how difficult it is to spectate, how it kind of takes... There's a lot going on, there's a lot of visual noise, a lot of things that are obviously real concerns if you're thinking about it as an esports game. But this is key because I notice a lot of the arguments are framed with a narrative that puts them relative to other esports games in a way that I think is not unethical, but it's kind of disingenuous. Like, I feel as though people are pushing certain narratives based on what game they want to believe is good, and that they're in denial that Overwatch could ever be a good game or could be a game that a lot of people could enjoy. And so I don't really enjoy that because personally, if you notice, one thing that kind of annoys me a lot is when people have either a disingenuous way of discussing something or they force a certain narrative. And I think it's fucked up, it's unfair or whatever. So okay, Overwatch as a casual game has clearly succeeded massively already. I mean, on a global scale, it's penetrated as far into like success in Korea, etc., which is one of the markers to be a really big esports game. It now has the whole esports industry behind it. And its success, despite that as an esport, is far from assured. Sure, it's got a lot of the artificial qualities behind it, actually more so than other games that had better viewing figures, where it's got a massive industry behind it. Millions are going to get poured in next year, huge big teams, huge big leagues. But viewership is clearly key to making it a big esports game. Otherwise, it'll just be another Heroes of the Storm type scenario. And it doesn't matter if people put millions and millions in, unless people watch it, it'll never get past that threshold to become a League of Legends, a CSGO, in the past StarCraft 2, Dota 2 to some degree. These are the big esports games. So when people criticize Overwatch as a game that's difficult to watch, well, I would obviously agree. I mean, coming into it, it's quite difficult to watch a pro match. There is a lot of visual noise, just in terms of knowing what to focus on. That still hasn't really been figured out so much. There's a lot going on because obviously you have essentially the attacking players and the defensive players and the stars and the supports all doing stuff at the same time. That can be difficult to discern what the key player was, what was happening, etc. Now, the problem I have isn't that aspect, that it's, I'm saying it's not difficult to watch, or, people should easily be able to watch it and enjoy it now. No, absolutely not. The problem is the context and narrative surrounding who is presenting that story and keep pushing the agenda and why they're doing that. That's one of my big issues, especially because I always go with the historical context of esports. And if you talk about people, a lot of them are coming from League of Legends. This is an issue when you look at the history of their game, because these people right now aren't doing it in a way where it sounds like neutral critique of a different game that if they were really enjoyed, they'd be into, and they think it's fair. It really does sound like a jealous ex-lover talking shit about the person who's with her new lover in this like insecure, very petty, quite catty manner, where they're not even giving you a chance and they're just writing it off and they're talking about all this shit and they're trying to find every little flaw and then blow it up in something that it's like, Jesus, what's going on with you? This is coming from you mainly. So one of the biggest problems I have with this is a lot of the arguments don't make a lot of sense, ignore key components of the history of League of Legends itself and other games. Like, it's certainly the case that there are a lot of issues right now. They're not overwhelming, but right now they haven't been figured out. Some things might take time to acclimatize to, and it might just never end up being one of those esports games that a lot of people watch, or that is easy for a lot of people to watch that haven't played the game and watched it a lot. Maybe watching it a lot helps, as with all the esports games. So first of all, let's just put this out there. Games can be successful to some degree without viewers understanding what's happening a lot of the time, or to any great detail or any great depth. I mean, a famous example of this actually in esports history was World of Warcraft Arena, the 3v3 multiplayer mode, not obviously World of Warcraft, the MMO. This came out years and years ago, and it was an esports for a while, actually. It was like 2009, 2010, 2011. They had this as an esport. It was on the IEM circuit. And what happened was, it was having crazy numbers, because think about it, there was millions and millions of people play World of Warcraft. So it only had to get a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction to have a lot in esports terms. Because back then, to have like 20,000 watching in esports was big. So it was getting more than these numbers. I mean, funnily enough, that's kind of a parallel to League of Legends if you think about where there's millions and millions and millions play the game, 100 million active accounts, yet they struggle to get 1 million people watching. So again, you only need a tiny amount. And part of it's the same thing again. You didn't need everyone to understand it, or it to be easy for all the people to understand. Most people weren't. They didn't care about it, didn't watch it, just played the game. Okay. But this tiny fraction did watch it enough, could watch it enough, and could get something out of it, even if they didn't understand it. Like, I had a guy where I brought this topic up to him, and he was a very, very good pro player in World of Warcraft Arena. He's one of the top players in the world. He's incredibly skilled. And I said to him, is it true that, like, basically, it's actually very difficult to understand what's going on? And he actually said, with no exaggeration, unless someone is basically on the pro level themselves, they might, keyword might, understand what is happening. Like they might be able to figure out what abilities and also, there's still a lot going on, but he said they'll never understand why I did this or what the context of it was, and they'll need the commentator to explain it, and they might even need, after the fact, like a replay or someone to try and break it down. He said in the moment they could never get it all. There's too much happening, too many things being spammed. It's like sometimes the thing that you spam at one point, it's like they set something up or to scare the person away, to draw something out. And he said the level that you had to go to, he said he knew even people who were like just below the pro level, who were trying to get in there, who were like the up-and-coming players, who if they got onto a team, they had so much to learn and it was so difficult. And he said that's why I always had an edge over people, because it was so. And so the point he made was, even for the spectator to understand it in the way they would a very simple sport, he said this was night and day. And so as a result, what's funny is he said, like, yep, sure, it might have good spectating value, but I don't think it'll ever have like be the biggest in that sense, to have the total mass appeal. League of Legends itself was and is incredibly difficult to understand initially when you first encounter it. I mean, that's why so many people from other games didn't really give League of Legends a chance. They watched it and they were like, this is just nonsense. I mean, you control one champion, you do like a few abilities, and then admittedly team fights weren't very advanced back then, but they were like, the team fight looks like everyone just stands in a circle, just throws all their abilities on top of each other, and then someone wins. And so that's really what people who are experts at much more difficult, more complex other games were taking and just dismissing League of Legends. All right, good, who will ever watch this? Maybe people who play it might watch it a bit. Now, funnily enough, I came in myself to League of Legends, and I had already watched at that point in time something like 12 years of esports. No, in fact, that's working in esports. I probably watched about 15 years of esports already when I came into League of Legends in 2012. I came in, I'd watched StarCraft, I'd even played some Dota in the past, and I had no fucking clue what was going on in these League of Legends team fights, because I was watching, and how am I supposed to know what that ability does? All I can see is a visual indicator, and the visual indicator doesn't tell me how much damage it does, how much it heals someone. I don't understand what the cooldown for all that thing. All these factors that are incredibly important, I didn't have. And I could watch a bit and I would pick up some of them, but it actually wasn't until I started playing the game on some basic level that I got a lot of the insight. And I was like, oh, you have to play it to even get some of it. And even now, I've played League of Legends quite a lot. I don't understand a lot of what's going on in team fights. That's why I like having experts explain it to me. So it's not the case that League of Legends is in any way intuitive or easy for people to understand what's going on. The point is whether you can enjoy it. It's not about whether it's easy to understand or ever will be. No one has and probably ever will solve that issue. I mean, I did a video up here about how they could make League of Legends some of the aspects better, some of my basic ideas. They haven't done a lot of that stuff. So what's interesting is casual Overwatch. This is a big problem I see here. Casual Overwatch, as you play it just in matchmaking, you just play it as a random person who enjoys the game for fun, which a lot of people obviously do, is very different from the professional side in a way that League of Legends isn't. Because actually in ranked in League of Legends, sure, people don't play like pros because they're not as good, but they play the basic meta of how pros play. They play the basic simple concept. Even the game is set up similarly, the way you go on the map, and in theory what your role is, etc. The meta game is acknowledged by the game, and that is the natural way that people play it. That is not at all the case in Overwatch. So as a result, one of the problems I think that makes people say this narrative when they're not trying to do it in a disingenuous manner is that almost everyone in the esports industry has played Overwatch now. In fact, a lot of people have played it a lot because it's a fun game casually. So what they're saying is, a lot of them, if I was to put square brackets in and insert something, what they're saying is, I enjoy Overwatch as a casual game, but I don't think it has a future as an esports game. Like I watched it, I played it. The implication is I've played it a lot as a casual game, and so when I watch the pro game, I don't know what I'm supposed to be enjoying that much. It just seems like a mess, and so I can't really figure out what's going on, so I don't think it'll take off as a game. Now, the problem with that logic, quite obviously, is that unfortunately, them having played it a lot casually makes them think that I'm not someone who's just watching my first 2 or 3 official matches. I'm kind of an expert. Like I know what's going on in the game. I do know, and it's just that you'll never be able to. It'll always be indecipherable. It'll be something that we can't get to the bottom of. And so if they've played it a lot, that feels to them as though they've watched it a lot and there's no hope for this whatsoever, which doesn't really work. I mean, like I say, it doesn't really have the same basis that even those other games do. Then you've got to add in that since they haven't really watched it a lot of these people are giving their opinion after watching 2 or 3 matches ever. They've watched 2 or 3 matches and they're going to go, this is what I think, this is how much noise there is, it's never going to make it as a game, but you can't really understand what's happening. Imagine someone watching, there are only 3 games of League of Legends, 3 LCS games, and then they tried to tell you about how easy it is to watch or what's going on there, if they could understand it, and go, probably no one will be able to understand this. You'd think, well, it's pretty ignorant, right? Why are you talking as expert? Obviously, you can have an opinion, But that's one of the issues here. They can't really know themselves. They haven't really given it much of a chance right at that point in time. They're certainly welcome not to watch, but they can't really make grand pronouncements concerning the game, right? As though they have discernment over what is going on within it. Think about this. Professional Overwatch has only really been going since like the late summer of this year when it officially came out as a game. This is not a game that's been out for a long time and had a lot of tournaments. It's only had something like 4 or 5 big lands at the moment. League of Legends came out in 2009. Now what's funny is, this is where people will wreck themselves by going, you are cheating. It was out in the beta and there were already tournaments. Yeah, well, guess what? League of Legends came out in 2009. Should we count League of Legends since 2009 as its official start? Should we have the first tournaments in 2010 as that's the official point of when people start to watch League of Legends? No, because we all know League of Legends didn't really get rolling as an esport until about 2012. It had tournaments in 2011, still wasn't that big. It broke through in 2012 with Season 2. So Season 2 was only in 2012, years after the beta. And it had 3 whole years to get rolling, to get up to pace, and then it got its big break as esport. Overwatch has started just thrown in the deep end immediately. And so, first of all, obviously game development cycles are different now, and the speed of the industry in picking things up, because they're looking for the next League of Legends, is more so. So that timeline doesn't work the same. It's not like you should give Overwatch 3 years. But the point is, this is like the first year and a half of League of Legends. So it's still got a bit of time. I want to see where Overwatch is in 6 months and 9 months in terms of not how do people understand it, etc., but can people understand it enough, or are the basics enough, or are the spectating solutions enough that people can just enjoy it? Because if they can enjoy it, enough can watch, and therefore it will be successful in that regard as an esport. Because if it can be successful in terms of numbers, it will be successful as an esport. At the moment, it looks like it's going to artificially be pushed to a level where it will be around for a few years. Now, the question then is, do people embrace it as fans, and does it get a big fan following? If it does, then it will succeed. It's not like some other games where actually games like League of Legends, funnily enough, pushed their way in with grassroots appeal, actually. It wasn't initially being embraced. A lot of people in the industry were like, fuck this game. Like, I don't play it. In fact, what's funny is a lot of people used to say the same thing about League of Legends. They'd go, I play it for fun. It's a casual thing with my friends, people from other esports games. But the whole point is that's a side game for fun, casual. It's not for esports, And the esports side of it was forced because the game as a grassroots casual game got so big and the viewers were being so big for simple, small tournaments that eventually the big people who did run these tournaments had to go, well, I have to run a tournament in League of Legends if they're going to get that sort of viewing figures. They did, and it was so successful, it has now taken over as an esport from some of the games that were considered much more of an esport, like StarCraft 2 back then. It's pretty much buried that game to some degree. Then we've got to consider this. All the esports games out there, the big ones, League of Legends is easily the worst to spectate, the most difficult to spectate initially. Even when you've watched it a lot, the most difficult to discern what really happened and why it happened and the smaller details of it. So think about CSGO, StarCraft 2, etc. This is the hardest to understand because even the basics of why a team fight played out the way it did is not as simple to as intuitive as the basics of how a StarCraft 2 game was won or a CSGO round was won. It's just not as simple, unfortunately. So we're not just talking initially either, we're talking overall as well. Part of that's because it's very unintuitive in its design and how the visuals of the game are. There's no really obvious way to know what all the abilities are, what's happening to them in the game. Some of them, even if they've been used, because some of them actually don't have such great visual flair, or there's a lot going on. It has visual noise itself in League of Legends. Consider that team fights are some of the biggest things in League of Legends. Even though there have been eras of split pushing and people who try pick styles, etc., in general, team fights to this day still are the big moments. They're the big Ragnarok moment that decides the fate of a game. 1 or 2 team fights or 1 big team fight. This can be the whole thing that decides a game. To this day, most people, even experts, don't really know most of what's happening in the team fight. They know the basics, and you hear pro players talking, and they know some aspects, and even some pros can't get it all. That's why when Jat has done his team fight videos, I'll put one up here, they're very, very good, and he slows it right down, and he has a chance to rewind and to show you what happened here, and what this person could have done, and if they were in range, and then this ability was in cooldown, and he goes to all this detail. And when he lays it out, you see how incredibly detailed it is, how beautiful it is, how there's actually a lot of like synergy going on, and timing, and anticipation and visualization of what can happen and what does happen. And sometimes it's the move that someone didn't make that could have won them the game, or a move that someone did make that was ballsy. And like, I mean, a great example was that Rocks Tigers versus SKT one where Prey like flashed forwards instead of going back. There's all these key details that you can't get when you initially do it. In fact, the commentators don't get it, and they're some of the biggest experts in the world on the game. Some of the pro players inside the team fight are making mistakes because they're having to do all this in a split second. That's how much visual noise and how many components there are going on in that one moment in a League of Legends team fight. So if we contrast Overwatch to other games, it's still one of the hardest to watch, certainly. I mean, obviously I'm not saying League of Legends is harder, by the way. I didn't count Overwatch as one of the biggest esports games yet. But I think certainly it's up there, League of Legends, with Overwatch in terms of games that are very difficult to get initially and overall. So if we were to talk about this particular aspect, okay, so in CSGO, one of the reasons casuals can enjoy it without being experts is because they can just enjoy the headshots and people winning 1v1s. Those two concepts are quite simple to understand and are quite enjoyable. They have like an aesthetic appeal and they're exciting. They don't need all the info on the strategy and who set that up and what flash set that up earlier and the fact that some information was seen over here which made the person not know that the guy would be behind him in the 2v1s. It was made into a 1v1. They don't necessarily need to know all that. That's all great. If they did, they can enjoy it more, but they can enjoy the game anyway as a spectator sport based on that initial stuff. In StarCraft 2, sure, you can enjoy to some degree the big army and the numbers, production values going up and down, the casters hyping it, but StarCraft 2, it's already getting quite difficult because now you need to know not only what is the composition of this guy's army, which units are stronger than other units, versus the other army. Then you've got to balance that against what are the timings. Like, sure, this guy might have a better army now, but the other guy has a timing that's coming in a minute where if he survives to this point, he's going to kick into having a better army and this other guy can't resupply that army. Then you've got to balance that against the economical component. How many bases do they have and how many more bases can they get and how many more resources are out there? You've got to balance all this together then with little fights that are going on. And you've got to then figure out in your mind what's going on, what's the narrative, who's winning, etc. That's already becoming quite complicated right there. And yes, the key thing is you can enjoy it on a level where you don't understand a lot of that. You only understand the very basics. And you have a general intuitive sense of who's winning and you get told by the casters. But to understand a lot of those details, it's getting very, very difficult already. Then you go to a game like Dota 2. I think Dota 2 is a bit like League of Legends in terms of the fact that often big fights decide it. But one of the things about Dota 2 that I find very interesting is if you know much about the game and how like broken a lot of the champions are, a lot of Dota 2 in terms of team fights is the thing that I learned after a while to enjoy it, is you've got to really identify what is available for the different heroes, what abilities they have that are available, what spells, and how many of their big spells and their CC and their like big moves that do a lot of damage, how many of those do they have to burn to kill like a key carry or a key player who's really fed on the other team? Because what you start to learn is, yeah, it's exciting to see them all jump in and the casters go hype. But if it gets to a point in the game where they had to burn it all just kill this one guy and then the rest of his team's coming in, actually that game's probably over. That fight is over and they're about to get completely wrecked because they won't have everything at that point in time. And so, yeah, it's still about knowing what items they have and how much farm they have and all. Yeah, that's all great and the matchups and all the rest of it. But you can enjoy it on an aesthetic level, but it's actually very complicated. Again, it has an aspect like League of Legends in that sense. And unfortunately, I think in Dota 2, personally, it's actually more important to know what the big spells do, etc. Because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to figure out those team fights. Then you go to the fact that as we've gone down the more like this, you can see the increasing difficulty and the more you have to play the game more to understand it. Here's the basic premise I would state, okay, which makes kind of the point of this video why I'm making it, okay. The gap of being able to initially and overall understand what's happening in a pro match of Overwatch, the gap is bigger from CSGO, one of the simpler games to watch, to League of Legends than from League of Legends to Overwatch. So this is CSGO, this is League of Legends. Look how fucking massive that gap is. This is League of Legends, this is Overwatch. Oh, it's a gap. It's not very much, is it? And also, almost everyone listening who's watched League of Legends, you've already watched and played the game a load. So you can't compare your initial experience because you probably can't remember it. That's part of the problem. And you probably were less experienced in esports at the time. So it's going to be very different context to even think about in that sense. And you had no reason to think, I don't understand this, I will dismiss it. You might have just liked the game, might be one of your first games, therefore you embraced it. You're like, I'll give this a chance, I'll see what's going on here. I want to know what's going on here that I don't understand. You won't dismiss it, I'm an expert, I played the game, so I don't need to know that. There's then the issue that it's one thing if casuals say these things. Again, people don't have to watch these things. I mean, I don't know how much I would watch the game if I didn't work in esports. Maybe I would just dismiss it, like I probably would have League of Legends, by the way, if I hadn't have had any esports work related to it. But one thing that I don't like is professionals from League of Legends. I'm not just talking about pro players. I'm talking about casters, analysts, etc., personalities, who just shit on Overwatch in this particular way and push these narratives and dismiss the whole game and the possibility of an esports game with this bullshit narrative. Because, first of all, imagine if I'd come into League of Legends and started doing that with League of Legends. Imagine the vitriol and how much people would despise me and say, "Oh, biased them," etc. I didn't do that. I came in, I thought, it's not a game I understand really. I'm just going to learn here. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to try and ask people what's going on, educate myself, see if I understand things. And after I had watched a bit, yeah, I could find an appeal that came even before I understood a lot of the aspects of it. And I understood that you didn't have to understand it a lot in order to enjoy it as a casual game. So that sort of stupid elitism just doesn't work. I mean, here's the thing. As a general philosophy, probably make a video on this one day myself in a different channel, or on this one maybe if it's about games. I actually do think elitism is a good thing personally, because that's the way I live my life. But this is the kind of elitism that seems stupid, because my kind of elitism is you try and find the best thing possible in a genre or an area and enjoy that a lot, and maybe you don't care about the other things. This isn't the best. League of Legends is not the best thing in the genre, mate. It's not even the best thing in like esports games. I mean, think about it. This is the sort of elitism of someone going, yeah, Limp Bizkit's a shit band, aren't they? And you go, oh, really? Why do you say that? They're not really as musically talented, I don't think, as Korn. And the thing about Korn is, like, I kind of vibe with the lyrics more. Like, I feel like they're more of, like, real artists, you know? And you go, you know, Korn and Limp Bizkit are pretty similar, right? Like, even people who like one probably like the other to a degree. And then they go, nah, nothing similar, actually. They're both very different. And the whole time I'm sat over here, like, well, I mean, I like Led Zeppelin, so relative to that, they're both shit, basically. Like, but I can actually appreciate each of them in a way, but not as much as Led Zeppelin again. Like, that's why the elitism doesn't work for League of Legends, because it itself is so far down the pleb ladder from esports elites, which is like Quake and StarCraft up here, then Counter-Strike's like here, and then like Dota 2's here, and then League of Legends is here, and Overwatch is here. Like, you're this far down, and you're the ones shitting on the people below you. Are you out your fucking mind? Especially League of Legends professionals. Again, you are not in some sick game, guys. I don't know why you guys think this is your pinnacle of esports. So, the problem I have is, when we're talking about professionals, why are we bringing partisan bullshit where I'm from this game, therefore I will shit on this other one, into the esports part? I understand if fans do it because they can play and do whatever they want. But why people who are professionals would do this is absolutely beyond me, especially in like some of this context that is like the blind spots that they don't seem to be aware about with their own game. Partisan stuff like that has no place in esports. Enjoy your game, sure, but don't use like false narratives. Don't push constantly the same agenda. And I don't want to hear people who 3 months ago watched 2 matches of Overwatch tell me now, 3 months later, of course it's impossible to watch, there's too much signal, and just start repeating the same rhetoric they heard from someone else. In general, don't repeat rhetoric. Don't hear it. Here's the thing, if you hear an opinion from someone else, you think it's cool and sounds good, don't then just repeat it as though it was your opinion and you were the smart guy that came up. What you have to do is listen to it, try and figure out what they were saying from that, and then use those reasons yourself to construct your own opinion. As soon as people start just spitting rhetoric, it's like 2 people are having a discussion, but through like 700,000 other people through Chinese whispers. It's ridiculous.